Hey friends and family, this is Bryan Hatch and wanted to jump into episode number 7 of my tribute to my grandpa. And today I wanted to share an extremely timely message. I think that what's going on right now in the world and what's happening right now in the end of March, early April of 2020, there's a lot happening. And so I come to think about a little more about my grandpa and what he really means to me and what's happened with him. And so one of the things that I learned years ago, but never heard the story. When I was a kid, I remember my grandpa talking about, or at least someone saying in my family, that my grandpa in World War II, his ship hit a mine. So he was in the Navy, and he was going on his boat, the big old huge cruiser, and they hit a mine, and it blew a hole in the side of the boat. Now I remember seeing those pictures pretty often when I was a kid. I definitely remember seeing them. It wasn't something that I didn't know about. But I don't remember hearing my grandpa tell a story. And just last year, 2019, I listened to my grandpa in his 96th year repeat and retell a story. So I recognized that it had been a long time. But when my grandpa told me this story, at the age of 96, he was incredibly somber, and the spirit was still very strong with him. And so here, I don't have a poem to share for you today, but I do have a piece of his life history that I wanted to read for you and share a couple thoughts because of what it means to me. And so there's a lot more story here, but granted, my grandfather's in the Navy and he repaired radios. He was a stud there. And he and his brother Russell were back and forth and got to see each other just a couple times during the war. So I just want to go into where he was and what happened. So let's see here. So he said he was talking about that they were heading for Okinawa again. As we got as far as Ulithi Islands, I apologize if that's not the way you say it, when news of the atomic bombing of Japan came over the radio, and we knew the war was soon to be over. We anchored near Mogmog Island and celebrated for a couple of days until the news of surrender came. We proceeded on to Korea to leave our passengers as occupation troops, then on up the Yellow Sea to Darien, Manchuria, where we loaded up with American soldiers who had been held in Japanese prison camp there for almost the entire period of the war. We headed back to the U.S., but were detained at Okinawa because of a typhoon. We were sent out to sea to ride out the typhoon, and while doing so, ran into a floating mine that blew a hole some 20 feet in diameter in the side of our ship. We managed to stay afloat, though our engine room was flooded. We only lost a few men, among whom was one of our passengers, who was never to see home after all. We buried the casualties at sea in canvas bags and with weights in them so they would sink. That's my grandfather's really abbreviated version. When I heard him tell it, I want to give you some insight. I wish I had recorded this conversation, so let me be a rule to you, that if you're talking to somebody important to you and they're sharing a cool story, no matter if they're 50 or if they're 90, recorded. It's pretty cool to hear it from their mouths. But he was talking about that one of the men who was never to see home after all. He had been in the prison camp in Japan for almost the entire war, and so they got him, picked him up, and he was excited. My grandpa, I'm sure there were many other Navy personnel there. They were excited to get those kind of men home. Like, get those guys home, man. They haven't seen home. And but the story that my grandfather doesn't share there, which I feel is interesting in the history, is that my grandfather was on that ship and he was on the deck. He was on the deck and he said he felt the spirit. Now, not everybody feels the spirit the same way, and not everybody understands maybe what the spirit is, but I know that we have a Father in heaven. I know that we have a God, and he sends his spirit, the Holy Spirit, to help guide us. So my grandfather was on the top of that ship, and he said he felt the spirit and said, "Get to your bunk now." And so my grandpa, he just went right there. So immediately he left the deck, went to his bunk. And within 5 minutes, my grandpa said, is when they hit the mine. When he kind of gathered his thoughts and feelings and was like, whoa, what just happened? He lost some really dear friends. So in that brief paragraph, didn't seem like there was a lot there, but there was a lot of emotion around that for my grandpa. And then when he went on deck, one of their rescue rafts had blown exactly where my grandpa was standing. And that was still right above where the mine hit. And so my grandpa knows, and we all know, that if he hadn't listened to that spirit at a time, he wouldn't be, literally, I would not be here. I wouldn't be shooting this video if my grandpa hadn't listened to that. And to hear my grandpa say that was far better than I can ever explain it, but the spirit was strong, and I could feel just the sincerity in my grandpa's voice, that these were personal relationships, men that he knew, and obviously his own life was extremely important. And so when I hear that and I think about what's going on right now, is our life is a series of impactful moments. Not every moment, not like what you're going to choose for eating for cereal in the morning or whatever you're going to do is impactful to everything, although it does impact what happens to you, I think. But there are moments like that my grandpa had of go away from here, or go be there, or go help that person, or lift somebody up, or go help that neighbor, or go help your friend. Because they'd always reach out. There are many people that I know that are maybe struggling with something, whether it be what's going on in our economy right now or whether it's something else, that God can give us that kind of a message. I think that's really impactful, really impressive.